Netflix's keeper test. It's been bouncing around the internet, and I want to take some time out today to talk about it and what it means to you as an employee. Not just the keeper's test specifically, but policies like it. Hi, my name is Alan. Welcome to Win the Day Project channel, where we talk about all things health, wealth, and happiness, and we use systems and systems thinking to help us navigate the world around us so we can achieve our goals. If that sounds interesting to you, go ahead and hit that like button, and please subscribe to the channel, as we will be releasing videos that will hopefully bring value to you and help you achieve your goals. Jim Rohn is one of my favorite motivational speakers. He's from the 80s, and he had this quote about your job that I just think it was fantastic, and I think it's appropriate here. So it goes, the most important question to ask on the job is not, what am I getting? The most important question to ask on the job is, what am I becoming? And as we think about this keeper test and react to these videos, I just want you to keep that in mind as we kind of watch this. And there's also a second video that I found as I was doing research for this video that was a former Netflix manager who talks about implementation of the keeper test inside of Netflix. I thought that was really interesting, so I'm going to react to that, talk about that as well.
Corey, you ought to look back at it. They used to send out DVDs in little onion skin fiberglass envelopes to your house, and you paid a monthly fee to rent DVDs from them. And there was a little negotiation story with Blockbuster that didn't go well. Blockbuster, of course, has now disappeared, and Netflix has become a media giant on everyone's television just about these days, and of course on demand everything, right? So pretty interesting. So they post an internal memo, talking points. This is from the memo. Netflix culture is based on 4 core principles. Here are 2 of them. The dream team and people over process. The dream team maintain a high performance culture. We model ourselves on a professional sports team, not a family. Families are about unconditional love, but they can be dysfunctional. Sports teams are focused on performance, even if it means swapping someone you love for a better player. I don't really disagree with that. I often say we're a family around here, but you really can't fire your family from being family. You can fire them from your business, but you can't fire them from being families.
The dream team concept is pretty interesting. There's a connotation when you say that, and I immediately go back to the basketball dream teams with Jordan and Bird and all those guys. But it's an interesting concept from a hiring philosophy, in the sense that when you think about sports teams, every year there's turnover, free agents. They're always looking to make the team better, always looking to improve the team. So they're constantly bringing in new talent, evaluating current talent. So it's an interesting analogy, and if you pull the string and play it out, it's got some pretty important connotations to it, right? Like everyone's there for a short time. There's turnover. You're constantly looking for new talent to bring into the team and to win. And so just interesting analogy. I understand the family thing. You can't fire a family, but if you apply that sports analogy, there's just some implications there that you gotta think about.
The keeper test. If X person wanted to leave, would I fight to keep them? Or, knowing everything I know today, would I hire X person again? If the answer to either of these is no, we believe it is fairer to everyone to part ways quickly. Completely agree with that. If you ever look at a team member and you say, there's no way I would ever hire them again and pay them that, then you're just keeping them because you're a wuss. And you're not doing them any favors, because they know that they're not pulling their weight. I mean, most people are somewhat self-aware. They know. So
it's an interesting take. The suggestion there is that if A, you wouldn't fight to keep them if they were to leave, or B, that knowing what you know now, you wouldn't rehire that person, then you should go. It would be fairer to the team member and to the organization to go ahead and let them go. And there's a lot of ambiguity, a lot of assumptions built into those statements, right? There's like a ton of like things that we need to figure out. Like, what does that mean? Like, if I'm working, I'm doing a reasonably good job, and there's some personality trait that you don't particularly mesh with as a manager, that means you wouldn't hire me again, or you and I don't like the same sports team, you wouldn't hire me again. So it's a little ambiguous to me as far as how that would be actually implemented inside of an organization. And luckily we have another video coming up that I want to show you all that kind of sheds some light on how this was interpreted and implemented inside the organization, because there's a lot of room for interpretation when it comes to this type of language. So now I want to show you a video from a gentleman by the name of Rico Nassau, and I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that right, but former Netflix manager. He's got a pretty cool channel. I'll go ahead and put that link for his video and the link for the Ramsey video down below, so you all can click on it and watch it in entirety if you'd like. But I thought he provided some great insights into how Netflix actually applied this, or how he as a manager applied the keeper test inside of Netflix. And so I thought I'd show this to you.
Now, this is where people get upset and the animosity comes from. But the thing I want to clarify here is how it gets deployed and used. I want to be clear about how I use the concept and I interpreted the concept, and how that was different, how some others, even within Netflix, used the concept and even potentially weaponized it in a negative way. And that might just be for another video. So how I use the keeper test. Now, I didn't wake up every morning, and look at over 135 people and say, who am I going to keep today? That would be toxic, and that would just create a culture of fear. Many of you probably heard that used with Netflix. We'll get into that later. The way I and my leadership team interpreted the keeper test usually was when we were looking at reorganizing the team, if the scope of the team or for a person has shifted, or if someone was even underperforming.
So he said some interesting things about this policy, right? He talks about how some managers have weaponized the policy, which is a scary term to use, weaponization of a HR policy or a culture policy. The other thing I thought was interesting was his last part where he talks about reorg or changing the direction of the team, and that being a trigger to implement the keeper test, right? So the roles or the direction of the team has changed, and now we need to make a determination on whether or not I'm going to keep you, knowing what I know now, am I going to keep you? Or what was the second question was, if you were to leave, now that the team's direction has changed, now the direction for the team has changed, and if you're going to leave, would I fight to keep you? So interesting that his decision was to implement that when the roles or the direction of the team changed.
To feedback. So already you can start to understand how these are specific and intentional uses for the keeper test. It was never, hey, it's Tuesday, time to run the keeper test. That's not how it was. Unfortunately, though, because other managers at Netflix didn't communicate this to their teams and never addressed the finer cultural points of the Netflix culture about high performance, keeper tests, and things like that, there was a mixed interpretation of how the keeper test should be used and how it applies to everybody. And that's how this idea of like the keeper test at any time perpetuated, which is not good for team culture or team morale. I was very clear whenever I had onboarding with new team members, how keeper test was deployed, context not control, like addressing really all the finer points of the Netflix culture and explaining how it shows up. So my team was clear about when the keeper test would be deployed or not. And I was always transparent about when these things would happen. If there was a reorg coming down, if the scope of work is changing, if somebody needed feedback and wasn't meeting the needs or meeting the requirements of the role, it was never a surprise. And that's how I treated transparency. So a little bit about how I use it. So if I was in the middle of a reorg or scope shifting, or if somebody wasn't responding to feedback, I would actually shift the question slightly. I'd ask myself, knowing what I know now and knowing what I need in the future, would I hire this person again to build this team? In some cases, it was yes. But in other cases, it was no.
So interesting. So even in the context of the keeper test, he changed the question, and he had the latitude apparently to do this. He changed the question, the policy to say, based on what I need in the future, would I keep this person? And that's an interesting take. And he spends a lot of time talking about this reorg, shifting around of roles and responsibilities. We have to remember that Netflix, you remember Dave, there's a clip on the Dave Ramsey piece talking about how they first started as a DVD rental company, and now they're essentially a technology company. They make their own content. I mean, they shoot movies and documentaries and are focused on generating a ton of quality content, so more subscribers subscribe to their app. So that's quite the shift in the organization. And even, as they've been a streaming service, there's been shifts about whether or not they would make content, or they for a while they had license agreements, and then they moved away from that and they transitioned to making their own content. So they continue to make these shifts as they continue to try and grow their profits. And as a result, the team inside, the individuals inside, they have to be shifted as well. You need new directions, new roles, new responsibilities. And he changes the question of the keeper test to what I will need in the future. Well, how are you as an employee supposed to get hired on day one, and then day 100 or 1000, the role changes, the responsibility changes, the direction changes, and now they need something different? Do you fit that role? Do you meet those needs? Sometimes yes, sometimes no. So what's really going on here? Well, if we take a step back and look at the keeper test inside the context of a system, how does it fit? Where does it fit? What's it actually trying to do? So I took the Netflix model and I created a little causal loop diagram just for us to have a quick conversation about the role and the goal of Netflix is to create profit, right? So the more profit they create, the more shareholder value they create, stock prices go up, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So profit's the driving force behind any organization, or most organizations. I would even argue nonprofits need to generate a profit at some point. But Netflix specifically is trying to drive profit. And how do they do that? Well, they have a system of employee performance. They have a system of quality content creation, and they have a system of workforce adaptability. So remember, they were shipping DVDs at one point, and now they're a tech company and a streaming service. So the workforce has to be adaptable, especially in the tech space, as they continue to try and figure out how to generate more and more profit. Quality content creation, the more quality content they create, the more customers they have, the more profit they make, et cetera. And employee performance. And this is just how I wanted to take a look at this, just for the sake of this conversation. So the keeper test is really just a feedback mechanism that lets them know whether or not that the employees are meeting the needs of the company in order to drive profit. What does all of this mean for you as an employee? What do you do if you find yourself under a HR policy that's similar to the keeper's test? Well, what this shows me, and what I saw in my career, was that businesses, especially ones that are growing fast, that are focused on driving profits, that are willing to pivot, that want an adaptable workforce because they're constantly trying to find new ways to drive profit. What that means is that team members can be hired for a position, and then that position can evolve, or that position can change. To go back to the dream team analogy that Netflix used originally, in a sports analogy, in a sports team, they are constantly, every year on a sports team, they're looking for new and better players. There's a new draft every year. There's free agents every year. contracts expire, contract negotiations happen. Every year they're trying to get better. Every year they're trying to get better. And they're always looking for talent to replace the existing talent. It's just the nature of sports. When I said earlier there are unintended consequences when you use the sports analogy, well, that's part of it. This constant search for talent to replace the talent that you have in order to pursue your goals. And as employees, that is a reality that we have to deal with. What did Dave Ramsey get wrong about the keeper test? It isn't good or bad. It's not good and it's not bad. It just is. The manager, the former manager, Rico, talked about how some managers implemented it this way, some managers implemented it that way. Some did it the way he did, some did it on their own. There's probably third, fourth, fifth, five, whatever the number is, interpretations of how to implement that policy. Is that good or bad? Systems theory tells us that systems are focused on outcomes, purposes, functions. They're neither good or bad. If we assume that everyone is a good actor, which I know is a big assumption, but the purpose of the system is to help the company drive profit. And we as employees, you as an employee, must understand that that is why the keeper test and policies like it exist. To help the company, it's a feedback loop to their employee performance, to help the company drive profit. And they will replace you for a better player, a better team member, if given the opportunity, because it would drive more profit. So, as an employee, you can get really upset about this and spend a lot of time screaming at the sun and yelling about how unfair it is, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, or we can just deal with it. Now we go back to the Jim Rohn quote about this idea that it's not about what the job can do for me, but about what I'm becoming while I'm on the job. And I would always tell employees that worked with me at my former company as COO, and I spent a lot of time talking to team members about this, you always have to be increasing your value to the marketplace, to the organization. Not for the job that you're in, but for the next job that you have. And it may or may not be inside this company, right? So the three things that I would tell employees, and I will tell you that I think will serve you well, is that always be learning, number one. If the companies offer training, you take it. If there's an opportunity to do a project and you can learn from some peers or learn from some managers, jump on the team. Get the information. Read the book. Take the class. Go to the convention. If a company's offering it, take advantage of it. Because it only increases, the more you learn, you just increase the value that you bring to that organization, but also that you bring to the marketplace. Because it's highly likely you will not be with that job for the rest of your career. So learn what you can. Become the best version of yourself as an employee. Increase your value to the company and to the marketplace. And when and if the time comes that the keeper test or a policy like it says it's time to separate from the company, you're well positioned to do that. The second point I would recommend to you as an employee, be adaptable. Roles are going to change. Directions are going to change. Purposes of teams are going to change. Be able to adapt, change with them. The more adaptable you are, the more value you bring to the organization, the more value you bring to the marketplace. You can decide to be rigid and stuck in your ways, and this is how things are done. But the way that businesses evolve and constantly are looking to improve and constantly looking to drive down costs and increase that top line revenue and increase profit, et cetera, like growing and changing is part of being in corporate America today. Being a professional in any company that's trying to increase their profits, the reality is things are changing and you have to be adept at changing with those things. So I saw too many, it was pretty easy to see the employees that would be successful and the ones that weren't, the ones that were able to adapt, change, learn, pivot, move. much more valuable team member than those who were stuck in their ways and had to be convinced. And we go these back and forths about this, that, and the other thing. The company's going to change. The only question is whether you're going to change with it or you're going to change companies. And the third thing I'd recommend for employees to be successful is build relationships. I mean, as you heard Rico talk about in his video, that the interpretation or his interpretation of the keeper test and how he implemented it as a manager, but there were other people who did it other different ways. And so you really have to build relationships with your manager to understand how they implement HR policies, to understand how they interpret certain things that are happening in the company and how it impacts your day-to-day life. So build that relationship with that manager, build that relationship with your peers, build a relationship with managers outside your direct chain of command. There's always opportunities inside the organization, and the better your relationships, the better chances that you have to potentially be a part of those opportunities. So build relationships, build relationships, build relationships. Is it tactical? Is it deliberate? Is it intentional? Yes. Yes, it is. At the end of the day, as an employee, we are beholden to the company. We are part of the company. We have joined the company. And so now we work for them. And the reality is, and my boxing coach used to say this to me all the time, and that is you have to protect yourself at all times. The keeper test is the policy where they come out to you, if you read between the lines, the dream team analogy, and the constant evolution of the teams and changing direction and pivoting and all those types of things that a company focused on profits will take part in, is that turnover is expected. They're going to be looking to replace you. And the only thing you can really do in this type of environment is to increase your value. And that still may not be enough to continue to work at Netflix or at your current organization, especially if they pivot in a direction that you're not qualified to help them execute. All that being said, protect yourself at all times. Continue to increase your value. Be adaptable. Build relationships. And those things will buoy you, will protect you, will prepare you to look for the next opportunity, look for the next job, and be the best version of yourself while these things are going on around you. Your job is your number one wealth building tool. At least it was for me. So understanding, and I would tell team members of this all the time, understanding that the needs of the business will continue to evolve and that may or may not include you in their future plans. You can take the opportunity, you can take the time while you're at work, while you're off work, you can take those opportunities to become the best version of yourself and increase your market value, increase your value to the organization, and you'll be better prepared to continue to work towards that wealth building that's ultimately going to lead to your financial freedom day. So again, keeper test, it's not good or bad. It can be implemented well, it can be implemented poorly. The net result of all of this, the thing that I think I want you to really take away from this, is that you as an employee have to be prepared that these policies are out there. And there are organizations who will tell you, who are telling you that I am looking for the next best, better version of an employee to replace you. And that's what Netflix has done in this keeper test. So I hope that was valuable to you. If you like this type of content, go ahead and hit that like button. I appreciate it. The algorithm will, hitting that like button will help the algorithm. And again, go ahead and subscribe to the channel, and we'll be releasing a video soon. So thanks for watching.